Did the prototype kill Ollie? At the end of Chapter 4, we find out that Ollie was the prototype all along, but strangely enough after this reveal, the prototype tells Poppy that Ollie was alive at some point a long time ago. This raises the question of what did the prototype actually do to Ollie? Well, I analyzed everything we know about the prototype, and Ollie might have just found out what actually happened with him and Ollie. Let's start with analyzing what he did at the end of Chapter 4. At the end of Chapter 4, after we kill Doey, we end up in a ventilation room, and Poppy immediately gets angry at us for killing Doey and begins to call Ollie to find out what to do next. However, in an to be honest, expected twist, Ollie says our exact location in a serious tone before revealing himself as the prototype. Now, what's interesting about this is he only revealed himself when he knew for a fact that Doey and the safe haven were gone, so there would be almost no resistance left. After he reveals himself, the prototype then taunts Poppy by saying one of the exact things Ollie said to her in one of the VHS tapes. After this, Poppy asks if there ever was an Ollie, resulting in the prototype saying that.
Yes, there was.
But that was a very long time ago.
Which is interesting to say the least. This raises a few major questions, with the first being, how did the prototype get Ollie's phone? And how long ago did Ollie die? But to find this out, we have to analyze the tape that the prototype was referencing while taunting Poppy about him being Ollie. The first thing we hear in this tape is Ollie trying to get Poppy to talk about her problems, saying,
Something's bothering you, Poppy. Something you need to talk about?
Poppy, of course, doesn't listen to this at first, but then eventually breaks down and talks about what the scientists have been doing to her. But at the end of the tape, when Ollie is consoling her, we hear him say,
I'm here, Poppy. For you, I'll always be here.
which is the exact same line we hear from the prototype in the Chapter 4 ending, confirming this is the prototype speaking to Poppy. This means that Ollie was more than likely either killed off by the prototype, or Ollie was an orphan used for an experiment that the prototype voice cloned before they died / was turned into a toy. I say this because this tape makes it clear that the prototype stole Ollie's voice before the hour of joy, which we know because Poppy talks as if she is still being experimented on by the scientists currently. However, with the fact that the prototype resides in the labs, from my best guess, the second theory is right, and Ollie was actually turned into a toy, like one of the mini critters after the prototype interacted with him in the labs, like how he did with Theodore in the Playcare. This would also explain how the prototype has Ollie's phone and is now impersonating as him to get closer to Poppy. So that's it, right? Ollie is just a toy now and died a long time ago, and the prototype is just using his voice to manipulate us. Well, I actually don't think that's the case entirely, and the truth is much, much darker. This is because of one simple question I had from that tape. Why would the prototype care about Poppy's problems? Because this tape was clearly recorded before the hour of joy. The prototype has no motive to say these things just to manipulate Poppy, because even at this point in time, we know that Poppy was actually on the prototype's side and took part in the hour of joy, which we know from the doctor telling us.
Did she tell you her part of the hour of joy? That she knew it was coming? Or did she leave out that crucial detail?
This means that at the time of this VHS, the prototype strangely cares for Poppy for some reason, but wants to hide that he does. But why? Why hide if he cares or not? To understand, let's go back to Chapter 4's ending. We hear the prototype say multiple times that he has something special planned for Poppy, referring to the new case he apparently made for her, which is then paired with him saying he wants Poppy to return home. But what's strange about that is the only homes we know of in this game that he could be referring to is Home Sweet Home in Chapter 3, which was meant for the orphans, and the apartment of Elliot Ludwig, which is where Poppy was held before in her case. Now, because we know Poppy existed before the Playcare, we know it can't be Home Sweet Home, meaning that he has to be referring to Elliot's apartment. But why would he care about Elliot Ludwig's office? Wouldn't it make more sense to lock Poppy away in the labs with him so the events of the game can never happen again? It just makes no sense unless we look at one of his final lines when he says,
It's always been about you and
Poppy, what we air. That's not a truth that can be burnt away. No, not when it can mean so much more.
why would we be capitalized here? Why is the prototype so adamant on catching Poppy and not killing her? Well, I think the answer to this question can be found in this secret Poppy VHS tape at the end of Chapter 4. Now, this tape starts off as Poppy just ranting about how she hates the prototype because he killed so many people in the hour of joy and beyond that lied to her about everything. But the tape strangely takes a much lighter tone, like she knew the prototype when Poppy talks about how.
And I hate that he's right. He explained everything, and he's right.
In this, she's referring to how the prototype knows that if any human finds out what happened down in the Playtime factory, they will just create more suffering for not only more humans, but also the toys. This would then cause her to say this revealing line.
I wish you were here, Dad. I could really use one of your talks right about now. You'd know what to say. When you were running this place, you always knew what to say. I miss you.
This otherwise confirms that Poppy's dad is Elliot Ludwig, otherwise known as the original owner of the factory, which also confirms that Poppy was Elliot's apparent daughter that he lost a long time ago, which was hinted at in his tape we found at the start of Chapter 2. But you might be asking, why point this all out? Well, from everything we know about the prototype, from how he wants to be close to Poppy and wants to protect and care for her, how he wants to keep her in his supposed home, I think that the prototype might actually be Elliot Ludwig. Now you might be instantly pointing out, why would Poppy be talking about her dad while bad-mouthing the prototype who we know would be her dad? Well, if the prototype is Elliot, it would make sense that Poppy does this because of one of three reasons. One, she either does not know the prototype is Elliot. Two, knows that he is and hates him for turning himself into that. Or the most likely option. Three, the prototype isn't like Elliot anymore. When he was turned into the prototype, he became a monster, which especially shows in the hour of joy when he kills everyone, no matter how innocent they were. Which also relates back to this tape, connecting the two identities of Elliot. This would make so much sense. It would explain why the prototype would care so much about Poppy. Why he's still keeping us alive, why he has a good relationship with the doctor despite what he's done to him, and finally why he would impersonate as Ollie to get closer to Poppy. But I don't actually think that that's the full story of Ollie and the prototype, because if we go back to the Ollie and Poppy tape, we notice that Poppy is talking to Ollie like she's known him for a while, implying that Ollie actually wasn't on the chopping block to be turned into a toy, which leaves only one solution to what could have happened to Ollie. The prototype killed Ollie. But you might be saying, wouldn't Poppy know about this almost immediately? Well, I have a theory that the prototype didn't just kill Ollie, he made sure no one could ever recognize him. But of course, this would raise suspicion on his part because of course the new psychopathic prototype would kill a random orphan. So the prototype did the smartest thing that he could and framed Elliot Ludwig for the murder. After all, the world doesn't even know that Elliot is still alive and kicking, let alone that he's the prototype. Now I actually have some more evidence for this, which can be seen in Chapter 3, when the radio announcer in Home Sweet Home says this.
Local authorities report that the body of a young boy has been found on the estate of the late Elliot Ludwig, an esteemed toy maker and originator of the Playtime Company. At this time, an identity for the child awaits official confirmation. Found in an upstairs bedroom in a large duffel bag, officers on scene report that the remains appear to have been disturbed. Organs, as well as key bones from the skeletal structure, were reported missing from the body.
It would make sense that this child in Elliot's apartment isn't just a random kid that Elliot or the prototype killed, but is actually Ollie. I mean, think about it. If Elliot is the prototype and he did truly change when he was turned into whatever the prototype is, then it would explain why the prototype would do this to Ollie just to get closer to his daughter, because at this point in time he wouldn't understand empathy the same way as the old Elliot would. Proof of this is that we know Elliot wouldn't ever kill an orphan straight up, because from how everyone and every tape described him, we know he had no intention of hurting anyone and just wanted to make children smile. But the new Elliot or prototype, who obviously feels no remorse for killing all of the toys in the safe haven literally just to make Doey betray us, clearly would. And to make sure that nobody would know that it was specifically Ollie, the prototype would make him unrecognizable with his weird claw thingies before stealing his phone and voice, right before calling Poppy and asking her to tell him her problems. But you might be asking, if all of this is true, then why would the prototype supposedly betray Poppy at the end of Poppy Playtime Chapter 4? Why betray his daughter, who he apparently loved so dearly to the extent of even killing a kid just to get closer to her? Well, I think that the answer is actually pretty clear if we actually question why the prototype wants to put Poppy in her case. Why not just let her roam free, or try to spend time with her, and beyond that, repair their father-daughter relationship? Well, I think the answer lies in Poppy's eyes. Have you noticed that in every chapter, Poppy's eyes turn more and more red? And because she clearly isn't on the Poppy gas pack, I think that Poppy might actually be dying when she leaves her case for some unknown reason, causing her eyes to turn more and more red by each passing hour. This would explain why the prototype says to her,
It's time to come home.
Poppy.